It's time for the Your Personal Bank Show with Ferenc Toth, financial literacy educator and speaker, entrepreneur, and chairman of the board of Bank Information. Take charge of your financial future with Your Personal Bank. Now here's Ferenc Toth.
Welcome to yourpersonalbank.com. And again, for those of you that have been listening, you know I do 2 shows a week, and I try to, in the first show of the week, focus on the Your Personal Bank, the concept, how it works, answer questions, share with people how to, it's a great diversification strategy, offset inflation, taxes, reduce market risk, have liquidity, and create positive arbitrage. In other words, create interest on, keeps the difference on interest on money you spend. Powerful tool. And there's no question, particularly with what's been going on recently with the concerns about higher inflation and taxes most likely coming. We're already seeing some of that, obviously. No question getting busier. I've always been pretty busy, but there's been an uptick, certainly. If you missed the previous show or the previous shows and you want more information on how Your Personal Bank really works and how this could be a great diversification tool strategy for you, I'm going to really encourage you to go to yourpersonalbank.com. The previously recorded shows, there's about a year's worth of shows there that are recorded with titles. You can listen to any of them, pass them on. I encourage you to do so and learn more about how this works and how this can really increase your financial future, put you in a much better financial position, gain control of your money instead of being out of control like most people are, I find. Again, reduce your taxes, all that good stuff. Go to yourpersonalbank.com. Seriously, check it out. You'll learn a lot of good stuff. There's some financial literacy sprinkled in with all that kind of stuff too. But again, that's what I cover on the first show of the week. The second show of the week, I try to really touch on more step back, bigger picture, economic things, current news, all those kinds of stuff. And of course, recently, for the past year roughly, since COVID shutdowns, the news has been, let's face it, a lot of stuff the government's doing, because never in my lifetime have I seen a situation where we have been dealing with so much government involvement in our lives. It's kind of interesting. I was talking to my wife the other day. Prior to this past year, I paid attention to what things are out there to a degree, but it's not like our daily conversations or focus or thoughts have anything to do with the government, frankly. And it's kind of thrust itself into our lives, forced itself in, and, it just doesn't seem to want to stop or quit or get out of our lives. And I think a lot of people are feeling that way. A lot of people are feeling very frustrated because they're just sick and tired of it, enough already. There's been huge mistakes. There's been tons of political issues and frustration and division and arguments. And a lot of people have reacted a lot of different ways, everything from getting angry, frustrated, some just giving up, some putting their heads in the sand, say, I just refuse to think about or talk to or listen to politics. I don't think I call it the ostrich syndrome. I don't think that's the right. I don't think that's the right answer, because if you put your head in the sand and just ignore everything, well, you're basically giving up your rights to your thoughts, your decisions, your vote, whatever, and to other people that you may or may not agree with. At the same time, I understand needing to take breaks from it, and I do myself. I shut. Here's the thing I've never understood. I'll share with you here this one. I use social media and various things like that, talking to people, marketing, stuff like that. But like about a month before the election, things got so toxic that I just shut down Facebook. I shut down all of it. I refused to go on it, refused to listen, because I've learned a long time ago that we as human beings are a combination of the people we hang out with and the books we read. And maybe not books, but what we read, right? And if what you're reading, is overwhelmingly toxic or negative, I mean, eventually, what are you going to become? And sometimes you just have to shut it down. The thing is, I know a lot of folks didn't like a lot of the communication that's been going on, frankly, for this past year or so. I've not liked much of it either. Nobody said you had to pay attention to it. there's a simple solution. You can go elsewhere. My gosh, you could even do something really radical, and that is there's an off button on all those phones that we carry around all the time. You can actually turn it off or turn off the notifications and such at the very least. And you can also delete apps. Like I said earlier, I deleted my Facebook app about a month before the election because it got so toxic and so negative. I just didn't want to listen to it. I deleted a lot of those kinds of apps because I didn't find it productive in any way. How's that? Now, have I been frustrated with the way things are going, or with the way what's happened and the way our country is moving forward? There's no question about that. Again, if you've listened to the show for any length of time, you've heard my frustration. I'm getting more encouraged as each week goes by because I see people standing up and fighting back, and that's encouraging. But what I want to talk about right now is leadership. And leadership is one of those things that's an important quality. It used to be considered very revered almost, a good leader. And Obama even said this. He was famous for saying, elections have consequences. They do. Leaders, but a bigger picture than that even is leadership. Leaders, who is the leader of any organization, makes a difference. And when you have strong leadership, you see a company, organization, government, business, whatever it may be, even families, individual, whatever, you see positive results as a result of that. When you have weak leadership or misdirected, priorities are not proper and the right where they should be, you see weakness, you see problems, you see. Well, I'll give you an example. I was in the military. This is very common knowledge, even for those that are not in the military. When you're in a squad or a battalion or a unit of any size, let's face it, this is taught and drilled into just about every soldier who's ever served. You want to respect the leader. You may not like the leader. Hey, that's neither here nor there. And frankly, that's not important. Respect is more important. And if you have an experienced leader and has the respect of the squad or the unit or the people in it, that is a much more efficient fighting unit than an inexperienced or a leader that lacks respect. In fact, leadership is so important with the military, or always, let's put it this way, has been. It's life or death for a soldier on the in a wartime situation. It can mean the difference of a soldier surviving a conflict, a battle, a scenario, or not. Leadership is considered deadly serious in the military because it is. It's deadly serious. When I see weak leadership or leadership that I feel like is way off base in terms of what their priorities are, it's frankly frustrating. It's incredibly frustrating. There's myriad examples of things I've seen recently, but I'm going to just share a few that have particularly been bothersome to me and I think have consequences in terms of the future of our country, the direction we're going, the kind of society we're going to have, the kind of economy we're going to have. Again, the ability that we're going to have going forward in terms of being able to make money, save it, and pass it on to the next generation or for our futures, right? Here's the thing. Again, I'm going to use the military as an example. When I saw some advertisements that the military was putting out in terms of, basically things they were stating that diversity was their number one priority. This is not me. This was military. This was the marketing that they were putting out there. Well, let me let you in on a little secret. The military has a purpose, and the military's purpose is really twofold. It's quite simple. And most people understood this. The military's purpose is simple. It's to kill people and break things. We used to talk about that all the time. For young, testosterone-filled young guys, that can be fun. I mean, let's face it, in a way. And there's an adrenaline rush from that kind of stuff to go and blow stuff up, and you know what I'm saying. There's a lot of adrenaline involved with that kind of stuff. When you have an efficient military, I mean, let's put it this way. In any type of human conflict, the military should always be the last option. When all other options have failed, that's when the military should be brought in. Not first, not second, last. Because once you bring those folks in, again, their purpose, their goal, their mission is quite simple. Kill people and break things. Because it's over. All the talking is over now. Okay? When you have military leadership talking about diversity, or you have a president who's there and they were bragging and talking about flight suits for pregnant women. That is, I'm not saying there shouldn't have those things. I'm not saying the military shouldn't have any diversity, and I'm not saying there shouldn't be flight suits for pregnant women. What I'm saying is the list of priorities of what the military should be thinking about or focusing on, that is so far down the list. Frankly, it shouldn't even be in the top 100, much less top 10, top 5, or number 1 even. Folks, that's ridiculous. A weak military, or a military that's not clearly focused on the mission at hand, laser focused, shows weakness. Weakness invites problems, invites conflict, and invites other countries and bad actors to do things that are not productive for the common good. I mean, in extreme cases, it can lead to wars and things like that, which, again, can be very destructive, very negative. America as a country has been very, very blessed, very insulated from war for a long, long time. The last war to really impact the American public was probably World War II. And it's getting to the point now where there's not a lot of people left who really remember that experience. History doesn't repeat itself. I think it was Mark Twain that said this. History doesn't repeat itself, but it certainly rhymes. And the thing is, if you've done any history, or you know of anyone who lived through that time, there is absolutely no question World War II had an economic and a massive impact on our country. Stay tuned in the next segment. I'm going to talk about this further and how it relates to today.
For more information on Your Personal Bank, feel free to contact Ference at yourpersonalbank.com. Back to the Your Personal Bank Show with Ference Toth.
Welcome back to the Your Personal Bank Show, and today we're talking about leadership and the importance of leadership and really how it affects our country, our society, how it affects our economy, and all those different things. When you have strong leadership that's focused on the things at hand, what they should be focused on, generally speaking, good things happen. And it generally betters society in general, or the folks involved, or anything that it impacts. When you have weak leadership, or leadership that's not focused on the task at hand, or has different priorities, that can lead to some very disastrous circumstances. In the last segment, I talked about how having a military, for example, focused on diversity, this is their own words, not me, is very detrimental, very off, their eye is not on the ball. Look, the military, as I stated in the first segment, is very simply put. It's designed, its mission is simple: kill people and break things. You bring the military in when everything else has failed. That's the option of last resort. And if you have a very focused, laser-focused, strong military, Teddy Roosevelt said it. Speak softly and carry a big stick. Just the threat, just knowing that's one of the options in the back of your hand, that if things don't go well or we can't get a situation favorable to, for us, our country, whatever, that's an option that could be brought to the bear. just the threat of that is powerful. And oftentimes a strong military means you don't have to use it. In fact, the stronger it is, the less likely you're going to use it. John Adams, our second president, was a big proponent, wrote a book about this and talked about this all the time. Throughout human history, countries with strong navies fought wars. When they fought wars, they fought them on other shores, other continents, other places, not on their home continent. He's right. We've been blessed as a country to not really feel much direct impact on any war situation as a country. Well, probably frankly since the Second World War. Anybody who knows anything about the Second World War knows that had a tremendous impact on our country and our economy and the people and everything else. See, we've gotten away from this so far, and people are so removed from it. They don't realize that many of these things, let's face it, what were they dealing with? Food shortages, gas shortages. They had stamps for buying meat on certain days and all types of things like that because everything was going to the war effort. And I think a lot of people think, well, that could never happen again. Do you remember last year when you couldn't find toilet paper anywhere? Or you go to the grocery store and half the shelves were empty? I remember that being a very eye-opening experience because even myself, being first generation, my dad escaped from Hungary, escaped from a very difficult situation. I even thought, I thought in America, I would never see that in America, but we did. We're seeing things that are unprecedented, and a lot of this has to do with misguided or weak leadership. The focus being in the wrong place. I was talking about this a lot last year. Where are the leaders? It seems like all we have are partisans. And as the partisan rancor grew, people arguing back and forth, it only seemed to get worse, not better. We really need leaders. And so, like I said, I'll give you another example. I gave you the military one. Well, let me give you another one. Recently, as we probably heard, hackers shut down a pipeline on the East Coast, shut down something like half the fuel that went to the East Coast. And there were gas lines and all kinds of stuff, the types of things we haven't seen since the 70s from the oil embargo. Again, type of thing never thought we would see in America, right? The response by our federal government was just shocking and shockingly weak. The response for the energy secretary was, well, they've been given a ransom, and it's up to individual companies if they're going to choose to pay the ransom or not, and we're going to defer to their judgment. Folks, a major company, American company, supplying roughly half the oil to the southeast, was hacked. This is a matter of national security. Laws were broken, okay? Big time. And to respond like, well, we're just going to defer to what the company decides to do, that's beyond ridiculous and ridiculously weak and pathetic. I was blown away. Here's the result. Most likely what's going to happen. It's just going to embolden the criminals to do more. Because what was the ramification? What was the negative to them for all this? As far as I can tell, nothing. My point is, misguided and weak leadership has significant impacts on how things are handled in our economy, in our society, all those kinds of things. These are kinds of things that can cause economic disasters, can impact our investments, our money, all of those things. The less secure we are as a country, the more at risk we are. And this is why, well, frankly, I'm getting more and more contacts about this, and I believe this to be more true as ever. Moving to assets that have guarantees, underlying guarantees, things like that, are becoming more important than ever. Diversifying, creating a diversification strategy, using your personal bank is a really strong tool. Contact me at yourpersonalbank.com for more information. Is a really good way to diversify your risk, or reduce your risk, I should say, and also reduce taxes and other various benefits that are involved. We tend to, as human beings, we tend to be creatures of habit. If something's working, we tend to do it, and we get comfortable with that. We do it over and over and over again, and if it keeps working, we just keep doing that. And for example, if you've invested in the stock market for this past decade or so, well, you've been rewarded by that. It's basically worked well. It's worked incredibly well. We've seen one of the best decades in the history of the stock market, frankly. Now, is that going to continue forever? The answer is obviously no. But people get complacent. People get comfortable. Again, that's human nature. But folks, what I want you to understand is times are a-changing. Things are changing. And frankly, things are changing much faster than many people thought, including myself. I did not expect to see such dramatic changes in such a short period of time. But again, you pump $6 trillion of money into the system. You allow the borders to be open. You respond very weakly to threats to our national security, for example. Not really paying attention, or being, the military being focused on other things that should not be important at all. Those all have ramifications. So moving to safety, reducing risk, all those kinds of things are going to become more and more important as we go forward. Stay tuned in the next segment. I'll share with you some more ideas on what you can do to protect yourself from the increased potential risks that we're facing going forward. So stay tuned.
For more information on Your Personal Bank, feel free to contact Ference at yourpersonalbank.com. Back to the Your Personal Bank Show with Ference Toth.
Welcome back to Your Personal Bank Show. I've got to tell you one thing, from a personal standpoint. I was approached about doing this show about a year prior to COVID. And initially, I had some hesitancy because, the time commitment. I was busy working with clients, traveling the country, speaking to folks, investor groups about the Your Personal Bank concept. Again, how to maximize cash growth, access the funds through the bank line of credit, create positive arbitrage, put more money in people's pockets, reduce their taxes, reduce their risk. I mean, a lot of good stuff, things are going great. I decided to do it because, it was a way to reach out to people, a new audience, different group of folks, and which, sounded like fun, obviously, kind of a new thing to do, but also, again, just to share what I believe to be an amazing idea financially. I've worked with so many clients over the years. It's changed their financial situation in a dramatic way, for the better, significantly. I was just talking to a client today who set up their first personal bank policy about 2 years ago, and was talking to the wife today, set up another one on hers. We weren't able to a couple of years ago because she had some health issues at the time, but thankfully she's gotten better, and looks like she's going to be able to qualify now. And she was talking about, she goes, this is the greatest thing they've ever seen. And they educate and teach people about financial stuff all the time. They run an investor group. That's the kind of responses I get all the time. So, it's kind of fun, you know what I mean, to reach out to people and just share a great new paradigm shift in thinking and some financial literacy ideas, and just improve people's lives. Truly make a difference. Not just invest some money and get a return and all that kind of stuff, which is, that's fine and good. That's all fine. But actually change people's lives for the better. And we're still doing that. Don't get me wrong. But I have to admit, I'm a bit frustrated because since all this stuff happened with the government interfering with our lives, frankly, starting with the COVID shutdowns and continuing to do so, And now the way that what things are happening, and the like I said, I'm talking about leadership. The leaders of our country at this point seem to be either asleep at the wheel or totally off base, misguided on their priorities. I mentioned in previous segments about the military and the Department of Energy, for example. Elections have consequences. Obama was famous for saying that, and he's right. And it's not only just Biden that I'm having an issue with, frankly. It's and I'm not saying that to be political or in any way, but I've seen articles and people talking about, it's a lot of the people that are being appointed or being put in charge that have vastly different agendas or focus than what frankly their department or their situation has ever had before. Talk about making dramatic changes many times with things that really work. Another example, energy's been a big issue recently with the pipeline shutdown on the East Coast. I think it was I forget which one it was. Transportation Secretary, one of them. She was the one that actually shut down the pipeline, the XL pipeline. But was talking about how to she goes, we don't have a supply problem, we have a transportation problem, in essence, getting the oil to the right places. And they were talking about, well, can you use rail cars, can you use trucks? And she then stated herself, well, the most efficient way to move oil is by pipeline. Yet she was the one that shut down the XL pipeline. Again, where are the priorities? Why are the and we're talking about an elite establishment who think they're smarter than they really are. And I'm not talking about just elected officials. I'm talking about bureaucrat, unelected officials who have in their head, I don't know where they got this, the ego that must be involved with some of these things, to not even attempt to learn from your mistakes, not even really, just to ignore the facts because you have a certain narrative, something that you believe, and you believe in this so much that facts don't matter. That's not leadership. That's partisanship. That's someone with an agenda. And they want to accomplish something, damn the torpedoes, right? They're going to accomplish this no matter what the impacts are, whatever the consequences are. And I find it incredibly frustrating to feel like I need to talk about this because it's having such an impact on our society, our country, our economy, all the things that are near and dear and important to us as freedom-loving Americans. Now, there's good news to all this. There's people are rising up. The silent majority is becoming not so silent anymore, and we should gather encouragement from that. Stay tuned to the next segment. I'm going to talk about a few more things about this and how it impacts our future, so don't miss it.
For more information on Your Personal Bank, feel free to contact Ference at yourpersonalbank.com. Back to the Your Personal Bank Show with Ference Toth.
Okay, welcome back to Your Personal Bank Show. We're going to wrap this up, and I just want to say I'm going to share a few thoughts and some encouragement for folks that, I'm running into some folks that are getting more frustrated by the day about what's happening, what's going on, but at the same time, there are reasons to be encouraged. Okay, so I'm going to share that with you. So there's no question, no argument that the vast majority, I'll just put it away. You can't convince me otherwise. I believe the vast majority of Americans basically love the country the way it is. They want a society of opportunity, not a society of dependency. Many people, the polls showed this, a majority of people that voted for Biden voted for him because, one, he wasn't Trump, and two, it was a return to normal. I've had these discussions with many folks, clients of mine, my own mom even, in fact, who basically voted for him because they just couldn't put up with the personality that Trump had. And, Biden seemed like a decent fella. And he even said himself, he portrayed himself as what do I look like? Come on, man. Do I look like a radical to you? So he embraced that, the most moderate option in the Democratic Party, or the folks running, we'll put it that way. and more of a return to normal. What's become abundantly obvious is the control of the Democratic Party and the direction that Biden is going is far left, far more progressive than the majority of people that voted for him, and those that didn't, want for our country. A big bait and switch, a massive bait and switch has been pulled onto this country. We've been lied to. I was convinced I would not be like a lot of Biden's agenda. I had no idea that he would go it alone, so to speak, and go in such a progressive, left-leaning, socialistic even, dictatorship type of approach. Brags himself the most progressive president in history. That's not what people voted for. They voted for a return to normal, kind of conservative, basically. Okay? That's what the Democrat Party, more of a moderate Democrat, that's what they voted for, what they wanted. We're not getting that. It has significant impacts, like I talked about earlier in the Today Show, leadership. The leadership's going this direction. It affects our lives. It impacts our society, our country, our economy, taxes, investments, inflation, all of those things. And again, one of the best things you can do right now to protect yourself is reduce market risk, reduce taxes, get into a investment that has that's interest rate sensitive, because inflation comes, it'll get higher returns, unlike many other things like the stock market and real estate and other things that historically have not. One other quick thought. I mean, a lot of people are putting a lot of faith into cryptocurrency and things like that these days. I'm not so sure. And I'm not saying that, I mean, the strength of it certainly is that it's not centrally regulated. That is appealing, but understand, a few weeks ago, Turkey banned Bitcoin. There's nothing stopping our federal government from doing the same thing, and if they feel like they don't have control, which at this point they don't, they could do the same thing. Again, history doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes. During the Great Depression, gold became a major source of wealth, and the government basically had no control over that. So what did they do? FDR banned it. It became illegal to own gold. There's nothing stopping our federal government from doing the same thing to cryptocurrency. And if you're putting your faith, and it's not popular. I understand this. This is not a popular opinion. But I would rather, one of the things I share with people all the time is this. Do you want to hear what you want to hear? Do you want me to tell you what you want to hear, or do you want me to tell you what you need to hear? And I'm not saying you shouldn't invest in cryptocurrency, but you should do so with your eyes open and understand the risk. And the risk is, if our federal government banned cryptocurrency, the value of that cryptocurrency would drop dramatically. I mean, I don't know how badly, it could be next to zero. Okay? That is definitely within the realm of possibility, if not probability, particularly if things get worse, inflation picks up, taxes pick up, the economy slows down, stock market slows down, real estate struggling because interest rates are higher. All those things we saw, in the 70s. For those of you who weren't around, go pull out your history books or do a little reading about economics and what it was like. Okay? I was a kid, but I remember some of that stuff. My point is, you need to understand that could happen, indeed happen. And again, folks, the precious metals folks, who say this is can be a store against inflation. I'm not saying you shouldn't invest in precious metals, but it's not the panacea that people sometimes make it out to be. Perfect example, last year when the stock market dropped 30% in March of 2020 due to the COVID shutdowns, gold didn't go up. For the most part, it did not go up in value, and we saw a 30% reduction overall in the stock market. And tremendous concern about the economy going forward. Why? See, you have to ask the question why when these things happen. Don't just, then you start to understand. The main reason, there's many reasons, but the main reason why is really quite simple. Something like approximately 80% of the gold reserves in the world are controlled by the central banks of the world. The Bank of China, the Federal Reserve, the Euro Bank, that type of thing. The banks basically control and manipulate the price of gold. Okay? They did not want gold to shoot up in value, so they manipulated the price to ensure that did not happen. Again, this is not a popular statement. I told you I'm a bank board, and I've talked to some people who would have the knowledge within Federal Reserve and things like that. Folks, that's what happened. Our Federal Reserve has tremendous influence, and the world banks and such like that, on our economic system, the value of money, and all those other types of things. They have a level of influence and activism that we've never seen in our lifetimes. It started with the Great Recession in a big way. That's really one of the Federal Reserve's been involved, but they were never involved. What happened was the Great Recession really scared the pants off of the Federal Reserve, okay? That's that's quotes I've gotten from people. It scared the snot out of them. And because there was real concern of a failure of the financial system, a breakdown, a complete breakdown. We all heard that. And that scared the snot out of them. And so they've become much more active, much more involved, and much more willing to do whatever it takes, basically, to ensure that doesn't happen again. The problem with that involvement is human beings are fallible. Human beings make mistakes. When you have human beings that have that kind of level of power and influence, and you add egos to that, and an unwillingness to admit mistakes, right, and willing to pile on if need be to prove themselves right, well, it's created some boom and bust cycles. That's been very clear, okay? And we're seeing that now. The extremely low interest rate environment that we've experienced over the past decade is probably the most important or biggest influence of the stock market bubble that we see today. The cost of doing business and borrowing money is the cheapest it's been in the history of our country. That's good for the bottom line for companies and profits, which increase stock prices. It's basic economics 101. When those interest rates change, when inflation increases and the Federal Reserve has to increase interest rates to offset inflation, that will have a negative impact on the bottom line profits of most companies, which will then also reduce the stock prices in general. How do you offset this? Well, diversify. If you're concerned about higher interest rates and inflation, invest in something that's interest rate sensitive. Your personal bank happens to be. Historically, prior to 08-09, dividends were 7-8%. Today they're around 6%. But historically, on an average interest rate environment, 7-8%. In a higher interest rate environment, double digits. Highly interest rate sensitive. If you're concerned about higher taxes going forward, you want to invest in something that is income tax free. Your personal bank fits that bill too. You can grow the money, access the money, and pass it on to your heirs, all income tax free if you set it up properly, which of course we do. I mean, why else would you do it, right? It'd be dumb not to, frankly. You see what I'm trying to say is there are options available. Oh, by the way, if inflation goes up, you're going to have less, the dollar will be worth less, your buying power goes down, you'll be able to buy less. You need to earn more. Basically, you need your money to work for you more than before to equal the same buying power. Otherwise, you're going to have a reduced lifestyle. I mean, that's just facts. So the dollars need to go farther. You need to create positive arbitrage, even on dollars you spent. How do you do that? Well, you create a high cash value policy where you earn the dividends or more than the interest charged by the bank when you access them from the bank line of credit. and you create positive arbitrage. Pick up 2 or 3% interest on dollars you spent. That means you'll have more dollars available. Your money will grow, increase, even after you spend the dollars. You'll still have more. Your Personal Bank does that. Contact me at yourpersonalbank.com for more info. These are the things that need to be done, and the sooner they're done, the better, because the clouds are on the horizon. The storm is coming. It's becoming incredibly obvious. I'm not trying to be negative or scare tactics or anything like that. But folks, I want you to understand inflation is here. We're already starting to experience it. The latest things I've seen, beef is up 40% on average across the country. Corn is up 50% across the country on average. Anybody who's been to a gas station recently knows gas prices are higher. That's inflation, folks, and those are the things that we spend money on: food, clothing, housing, gas, okay? So inflation is here. It will probably only get worse before it gets better, and it's caused by an extreme level of spending. Our government is committed to spending more. If they do, it'll exacerbate the problem. It'll be worse. They're also committed to increasing taxes. If they do, you need to reduce your taxes. Contact me at Your Personal Bank for more information, and as always, listen to the Your Personal Bank Show.
For more information on Your Personal Bank, feel free to contact Ference at yourpersonalbank.com. This show is designed to provide accurate and authoritative information. The presenter and guest on this program do not engage in legal, accounting, or tax advice. Professional advice regarding your situation should be sought if required. Products and riders may have limitations and may not be available in all states. Excessive unpaid loans may affect performance. Distributions may become taxable if not managed properly. Replacements may not be suitable for everyone. There may be charges when replacing coverage. Compare when considering a replacement. Dividend rates and baseline of credit rates may change. Contact yourpersonalbank.com for current rates.